Hi everyone, Armoured Pants here, and I have another video for you in the German line. This is Tier 8 Heavy, the VK4502A. And as always, we have a complete guide, starting with a complete tech spec, and to do that we will look at blitzhanger.com, which is a great asset for all blitzers, and if you're not using it, I certainly recommend you do. Now, the 4502A comes after the Tiger P. It rivals the Tiger II, the Löwe, the VK100-01P, and it's unusual in that it is a tank which has been in Blitz for a long time, but it is not played so much. It's often overlooked in favour of the Tiger II, especially after the buff, or the Löwe as a heavy tank, a heavy premium tank. And this tank is often bypassed. Also, it has kind of a lot of bad press. It's not much appreciated, but actually it's a pretty decent tank. It has an 8.3 second reload, which is good. It's going to give you 380 rolls just on your normal AP. It has 215 millimeters of pen on the AP, which is pretty good too. It has that 105 centimeter German cannon, same that's on the Löwe. So it's a really good tank in terms of its gun, good gun handling. Aim time, etc. is all pretty good. You got 365 millimeters pen in the APCR, so load that up, because if you're up tiered you will need that for penning some tier 9 heavies up front. Use supercharge to get that muzzle velocity to maximize it. It goes up to 1235 meters per second, which is pretty good too for a heavy tier 8 tank. You can see dispersion factors are good, base aim time is good, dispersion is very good. Has 6 degrees of gun depression, which is kind of what you expect from a heavy tank. In terms of mobility, at forward speed it's almost 40 kilometers an hour, so it's pretty okay as well. But its power to weight ratio is pretty good, except in soft terrain, so if you're in water, be aware of that. If you're playing something like May and Runes, if you're down at the riverbed, but otherwise its power to weight ratio is good, so it basically accelerates from a standstill pretty well. And the gameplay we're going to look at, you will see, is Normandy, which is has a lot of undulating terrain, and you'll see the tank handles very well there. It also has good traverse speed, as you saw. Now, looking at it, its armor profile is very decent. If you're top tier, you can bully in this tank. You can side scrape, as you can see. If you look at those relative armor numbers on the side of the turret and on the side of the body of the tank, you will see that they are very good, very high. It is a big target, as you can see. The top of it is quite high. Side on, it has some armor, but it's vulnerable. But its back is very vulnerable. So if you have a rim or a waffle tractor in the game, you do not want to show your butt to them, because they will pen you with HE rounds. But front on, as heavy tanks should be, it is decent, with decent gun depression, for a heavy tank, and relatively decent good elevation. You can see though, front on, if you're top tier, that this tank is really difficult to pen. Even at tier 8 it's difficult to pen front on. It suffers a bit when up tiered, but if you're up tiered you need to adapt your tactics accordingly. If you're top tier, you can go front line, you can play it as a heavy tank should be played. You can use that good power to weight ratio to get to bases, to capture them, to capture those key focal points on the map. And if you're not top tier, then you can support the other heavies, the tier 9 heavies in your game. So all in all, it's a decent tank. It's nothing spectacular about it. Handles quite like the low, but is more maneuverable. And you'll see that, in the game, this tank is surprisingly good. It also surprises the enemy. The gun handling is really good. And good gun handling is often overlooked as a characteristic, but it really affects your actual DPM versus your theoretical DPM, because every shot missed reduces your actual DPM, and it widens that delta between actual versus theoretical DPM. And when you look at stats on tanks, they show you the theoretical DPM. They assume that every shot penetrates, but we know that is not the case. You can see here that the good gun handling of that shot on the RU snapped one off to him and went right through. And you wouldn't do that with all heavy tanks, particularly not non-German heavies. If that was an IS-6 rolling up there, that shot would have gone high, wide and handsome and gone nowhere near the RU. You can see here that this 8.3 second reload is also really good. and it really allows it to be a good brawler, a good sort of frontline tank. You can use it as a battering ram, and even if you get isolated, even if you're 2v1, you can see here how maneuverable it is, right? Because that's that power to weight ratio. So don't worry about the top speed. Very few heavy tanks get up to their top speed in a game because it takes them so long to reach it, right? So even if it has a higher top speed, if it's not accelerating fast enough, it doesn't get there. But you can see how quickly this tank takes off because that big engine is making its power to weight ratio really effective. So we've come along here and we've actually been able to get into a flanking position. So we're sort of catching the enemy now, and it's kind of ironic that we're in a German tank in a typical pincer movement, and we're going to be able to inflict some damage here. You can see even the smallest of targets, slow it down there. You can see just how good this gun is. Again, referring back to an IS-6, IS-3, you would not have made that shot. Now we're going to push on, see if we can get some more shots. No. So now we are going to see what's available here. Stuart Emil. So we're going to help out our T23 here, take him out. So helping out to T23E3. Stuart Emil, I'm not sure if he was AFK or not, I don't know, but he was isolated, so that was not good for him anyway. See again, like snapshot off, just using this rock as cover, rolling out in cover when I'm reloading, rolling out, taking some shots. And this tank is just very effective, you know. So we're 2 bases up here, but we're a tank down. You can see here, where, you know, against, that's what I meant when you're top tier, you know, you can just roll on. I knew that T43 was there. Worst case scenario, I'm going to take a low alpha roll from him, but probably I'm going to bounce. And I'm in a strategic position here where I can just take on the KV. And of course I took one, but you know, I have the KV where I want him. He's side and back onto me, and I'm front onto him. Put one into the IS-2 there for good measure. I have a much faster reload than the tanks around me, so I'm quite happy to trade blows with them. I'm going to push out here, see if I can tempt that KV into making a shot. He doesn't even try. That's his low traverse speed. His big aiming time means that this is not really a fair contest. And then one straight into the butt for him. Another round in there. And you can see just how good this tank is again, right? I'm front onto that ISTs too, so I bounce a shot. I understand he's lower tier, but he does have a big gun. Sloppy gun handling on the IS-2. Any of you who've played the IS-2, you know it is just not a reliable tank. Just there as I was seeing the praise of the gun, I fluff a shot. But there's also RNG involved as well. And you can see here now when we go into the brawl situation here, again I create a mobile side scraping angle onto the IS-2 as I push by him. He has a really long reload. He bounces that shot off me. We saw those relative armor numbers when we looked at the tech spec. And you know guys, for those of you who are just new to Blitz, you may often think that you're getting bad luck, but it's not bad luck. We saw when we looked at the tech spec what the relative armor numbers are on the side of the tank. So at the angle that the armor's at, the relative armor numbers are way up over 500 millimeters. So it was obvious that he was on it. It's just basic physics. He was going to bounce that shot. So it's not bad luck. It's about understanding your tank, understanding the tank you're brawling against. And I knew pushing by him like that, there's no way an AP round is going to go through the side armor of the tank. So we're able to take him out, secure a mastery badge, and do a really solid job for the team. Bit of a carry as well. And you just saw how effective this tank can be. Now, it's not a perfect tank, of course. It has limitations. You know, it has relatively low alpha rolls, but then you do have a much better reload. You have much better gun handling, so your actual DPM versus theoretical DPM is very good. And you can see any game where you get a sharpshooter badge in a heavy tank is really good. Also delivered high caliber, top gun, and a mastery badge. But in particular, I think the sharpshooter badge there is one that we should take note of, because with almost 4k of damage in the game, we see that, you know, the gun is very accurate, and to get a sharpshooter badge, you know that you need to have a very accurate gun, right? It's basics. Let's have a recap of all the key points. So this is a good heavy tank. It is a heavy tank, and that you can play it as a typical heavy tank. And you should watch the heavy tank guide if you want a refresher on that. Need to side scrape on this tank, with this tank of course, if you are going up front line. And it's a usual tank, you know, it's not very popular. You can play like 10 tier 8 games in a row and not see one of these. And therefore playing something unusual is always a bit of fun. And it's not really bad at anything though. It does not excel at anything, but it's not bad at anything, you know. I quite a pretty well balanced tank. It's forgiving, you get bounces you don't even play for, like with that T43. It has undervalued armor as well, I believe. The lower plate is a bit more vulnerable than the rest of the tank, but nonetheless it's still stronger than on some tanks. And pay attention to the map, move accordingly as I did there, and normally because that power to weight ratio allows you to get around the map a lot easier than many other heavy tanks. 105mm gun is very good, great gun handling as we saw in the game. You can snap shots off. I use supercharge on it to get that muzzle velocity up to 1, 2, 3, 5 meters per second. Use a fine gun to also increase the chances of pen. And usually we'd go to heavy tank channel on this tank, but because you can get around the map, you can also go other channels too, depending on your team makeup. Watch your sides and butt, get front on. Basic rule for every heavy tank, not particular to this. This tank is best facing the enemy though. You saw there, particularly your butt is vulnerable and you can be penned, so keep facing the enemy, and then you can be the pivot for your team, as I was in that game. Just be aware though, it is very tall, so some rocks, for example, that would cover an IS3 and IS6, the top of your turret may push out over it. So just be aware of the tallness of the tank. But it can be great if you make the right choices, play to its strengths well. And as I said, it's also a great brawler, well balanced tank. So if you haven't played it before, give it a try. It won't let you down. You know, because I believe it's kind of underestimated, and it's certainly an underplayed tank, but it is a very solid tier 8 heavy, and one that will perform for you if you play to its strengths, and we've outlined here. Music is Shotakovich, Waltz number 2, also called a Gulag Waltz, because Stalin put him in a Gulag. Maybe he didn't like waltzing, who knows. Stalin didn't like lots of things, people being one of them. So, hope you enjoyed it, hope you found it useful. I guess all remains for me to say is cheers Mush, thanks for watching, and pants off.